Today's podcast is brought to you by Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. When it comes to home and auto insurance, it's important to have the right coverage from a company and an agent you can trust. Someone who will help you properly protect the people and things you love most. So if the unexpected happens, you and your family can rest insured. To request a free quote, find your local KFB insurance agent at mykfbagent.com. Kentucky Farm Bureau, big on commitment. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm freezing. It's very cold out.
It's a cold world.
It's very icy and snowy and all those things. I'm sure farmers are having a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, I've never wanted Louisville to win something more than I did on the snow count. But normally it rains in Louisville, and I'm angry because it's a drought, and I am in places that need rain, and it's raining on your concrete. Opposite on this one. You could have had all the snow. You guys got like 9 inches in a day. I was a big fan. I was like, we'll take our 3, and then ours kept coming, and it was very unfortunate. We tried to match you. It was not fun.
Yeah, the only thing that's been beneficial is my son's wallet. So he has been shoveling driveways.
Ew.
Yeah, so somebody got wind that this 15-year-old kid will come and shovel your driveway for like $20, $40 or something like that. So he has been killing it.
That's what they charge in Louisville for this? Is this like city babysitting rates? Like this is your boy shoveling rate?
I don't know. I think so next to my neighborhood there's like a townhome area, know. So it's in their retiree aged folks for the most part through that area. And I think they just like, look at this nice young man here. You did such a good job. And he's doing a good job. But he did one, didn't want to. And then he got paid. And he's like,
That got more fun immediately.
Yeah, this is suddenly different. And it wasn't so hard. And then, he's done, I don't know, about 12 driveways.
Oh, dang.
And he didn't do mine. And I'm like, hold on here. There's one more. And he's like,
did you hold up a $20 bill in his face?
No, I was like, you just do that one. You don't get paid to do that one. You just do that one. So, yeah, he sort of did it. But no, I mean, yeah, he's been doing really good with it. So.
Yeah, it has been cold, but all the kids went back to school. I guess I'm dating myself, whatever today is. And it backed me up because I guess every Louisville parent has to bring their child the first day after snow because I couldn't get to work. It took me forever. But we're getting there. We're thawing out slowly, maybe. It's still cold, but.
Yeah, it's a little cold, but we have a great guest today that battled through the cold and the snow and came to Louisville and came to our studio. So I think the folks will really like it.
Yeah, our current reigning, we were laughing. She should get a tiara and a sash, which is the most un-Brenda Paul thing ever would be to have a tiara and a sash. But she is our reigning Farmer of the Year. So she will get to keep that title until we pick another one next December. So very worthy, very cool cattle operation, diversified operation. You guys will love hearing her story.
Yeah, I think this is a great chat we have, and she's a worthy Farmer of the Year for sure.
For sure. So without further ado, I'm Renee Carrico.
And I'm Matt Hilden.
And this is Between the Rows. All right, so we are here with Brenda Paul. Brenda, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Renee?
So good. So good. Matt is here as well. I'm back. I had been a little under the weather, but we are all back, and we're
all
here.
Back and healthy. We do appreciate you coming to Louisville and seeing our cool studio. What do you think?
My pleasure. It's amazing. I'm always amazed when I come to the Farm Bureau office, though. I see a different section every time, and it's always this is a neat area. This is always nice.
Yeah. So the last time we saw you was at a new meeting. And then even before that, I was at your place.
At the farm.
Yeah, for our shoot for the Farmer of the Year. So
yeah.
Tell us about you. Kind of rewind. Tell us a little about how'd you get into agriculture? What's your background?
Well, gosh, I grew up on a farm in Indiana. My parents had raised corn and soybeans and a few cows and did the typical farm kid thing, did 10 years of 4-H, was in the show ring with cattle and went to Purdue, majored in ag econ, and pretty much every job I've ever had has had something to do with agriculture. And early days, I don't think I saw production agriculture is where I was going, but that's where I am today.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. So what do you guys do? Talk a little bit about what y'all produce. Yeah.
Sure. Still in the cattle business, and my entire life I've been involved in the cattle business. And at this point, we have kind of two businesses, and the farm is cow-calf and stocker beef cattle, and we calve in the spring. We also calve in the fall, 2 different herds. We have a few thousand feeder steers throughout the year, and then some of those I'll send to feedlot, and some of them I sell here, and just kind of market-driven decisions. And sometimes weather-driven decisions. If it's a drought, we may have to do something different. We just witnessed that this fall. And then our other business is called Cattle Marketing Group. And that's my husband is an order buyer, buys and sells cattle. One of our sons has joined that business, and so we trade nationwide. But certainly, a big supporter of all the markets here in central Kentucky, and but we do trade nationwide.
Very cool. Very cool.
So we kind of touch the cattle business from all segments.
So it is fun when you get to interview them before. So you did the Farmer of the Year program. You're our current Farmer of the Year. So congratulations on that. But in the last couple years, I've learned so much about your operation. My big joke is I rode with her son, Nelson, when we were doing the interview. So the judges rode with Brenda. So I learned really everything. I mean, if you want to know the deets.
She probably got the real scoop.
No, but I do think it's a neat story. And I don't remember which year you talked about it with this, why you ended up in the county you ended up in, why Kentucky. I think that's just a neat story of how you got here. So do you care to share that with us?
I'd be glad to. Kentucky is home to, I'm not sure what the number is, 20,000 cattle producers. And that's why we're here. Because we moved here, actually we moved at 2 different times. We weren't married yet. I have to stop back and think here. Austin started doing business here in the 80s and then relocated down here. And with his trade, this is a place where cattle are available every day of the year and at sales. And so it's a good place to be an order buyer, make your living year-round. There's certain areas of the country where they're grazing like wheat pasture or something, then you have an 8-week run of trade, and then it's nothing until the next. So this is a really good place to live. We also liked it a lot. And then I moved a year or 2 after he moved, and then we got married a couple of years after that, and we chose Bourbon County because we wanted to get out of Lexington, and we spent our weekends kind of looking around in the surrounding counties and just really liked the feel of Bourbon County. We liked that it was a small town and probably would continue to be that small town vibe for years to come, and it has, and so we're very happy there.
It's so interesting. If somebody like me that grew up here, I don't even think about an idea of not having cattle at the yard. We have slower runs and we have heavier runs, but there's always a run. And so it's so interesting when you talk to people out west, up in the Northern Plains, exactly like you're talking about, someone in you and Austin's business that understands that. People that are born and raised in Kentucky don't even think about the fact that there would be weeks of hiatus when, okay, the pastures, like we've stocked the pastures. We don't have cattle moving right now. It is a different, it's a different way of doing it. So it is very interesting. Kentucky's a unique place. I think we always say most cattle east of the Mississippi, but it's that year-round perspective and the temperament, the climate we have that makes it really unique as well.
Well, it's taking advantage of our natural resources. You know, we think about our pastures and the hay that we can grow and the abundant water supply, and sometimes I think we take those things for granted. And if you sit back a little bit, just look at California. No water, that's an issue. We don't have that here. We complain about the droughts we get into, but we know the rains will come. They'll come back. They always do. But to be able to do what work brought us here and then do it year-round and raise a family was paramount. The buyers that are going to some of those other markets are going somewhere for a month or 2 and then moving on. It's very transient. So I think the other thing we have to think about, it's not a natural resource, but it's a byproduct of these cattle being here, are those markets. And I think if you look at a map, you'll see that Kentucky has one of the strongest stockyard systems, market systems, statewide of probably any state in the nation. Another thing we probably take for granted here, whether it's one of our barns that we're connected to or some we don't even get to go to, maybe they only sell once a week, there is always a competitive market for cattle in Kentucky, and that's where our producers are making their money because they have that competitive market. We top sale prices in the region frequently, and when I say we, I mean a Kentucky market.
Right.
It is the truest price discovery is when you have an animal standing on a scale, which is your sale ring, and many people bidding on it. And that's just the best thing for our market and for cattle producers, and we have that in Kentucky. So between the natural resources and the market system, it's a great place to be a cattle person.
You talked about, it's such a neat perspective. I love people, my family's from Louisiana, so obviously we have a very deep South perspective. And so I always tell my parents it's so unique to me to hear differences in what they saw growing up and what's in Kentucky that I just take for granted. So I think it's very neat y'all coming from a different area. You talked about, though, when we talk about our resources, the forage side. And I think this is a part of cattle farming. And I've said this on the podcast and I'll say it again. A good cattle farmer is a good grass farmer. Mm-hmm. And any true good cattle producer is going to understand that, whether you are a feeder cattle person or not, whether you're doing a little bit of dry lot, somewhere somebody's got to be producing the right forage. Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit about, you guys do produce your own forage and then you have specific ways you graze. Talk through some of that and how it's built. And I know Nelson helps you with some of that on the farm as well, correct?
Sure. Nelson every day is taking more and more active role there, and he's doing a great job. I think what we have to do as cattle people with forage and being forage based, because some of our stocker operators are more backgrounders, and they're running almost like a little feedlot where they're kind of feeding more of a concentrate on these cattle. We try to stay more forage based, so we have to think in systems. And so we're thinking today we're feeding hay, and we have a lot of ice and snow on the ground, so we're feeding a lot of hay right now. I'm watching that hay inventory just drop, and thinking it's still January. So once we get closer, the snow's gone, and now we're back to grass, and I have steers out there. They're in fields that I want to graze all summer, so I've got to take care of that forage. I can't wreck it. You can have a sacrifice field, but you can't have all your fields be sacrifice fields. And then we try to take very good care of our pastures, and then we'll subdivide and rotate. So even during the grazing season, we're not overgrazing. You have to leave some grass behind to make more grass. And so that's another thing. We've had a wealth of experienced people in this state through Extension that have been very instrumental in helping us and other producers with their forage management. I was in New Zealand with the Kentucky Ag Leadership Program a few years ago, and I think they make the best use of forages of anybody I've ever seen. I came home and I told my husband, I said, I think we as a state waste a lot of forages here. There's always room for improvement. And so we're always trying to find ways, whether it's distributed water systems or cross fence with polywire or whatever we're doing, we're trying to find ways to get more out of it. But we have to think in the system. So while I'm grazing in the summer, I'm also thinking about the next turn of cattle that's coming behind those cattle, and making sure that we've got their feed source coming too. So it's a lot to juggle, and I think that's part of the challenge why I like it. Yeah.
So coming out of Purdue, you weren't going to necessarily farm. What was some things that you wanted to do coming out of college, and what changed?
Okay, well that's a good question. I came out of Purdue, and let me back up. This is. I had a very close view of the 80s farm crisis, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of my parents' friends and things were going through that. My parents made it through. And so, but I saw, some challenges in farming through that. So there was this whole section of people that did not plan to go to production agriculture because they'd just seen how bad it hurts, and they had maybe lost their family farms. And so we did not in Indiana. In fact, I still have that farm up there. But I was headed to marketing. I was heading to PR, something like that nature, mm-hmm. and had some interesting jobs with like the Indiana State Fair and their publicity departments and things like that. And when I was in college, and then coming out, I actually had a minor. Well, it wasn't actually. I should correct myself. Purdue does not grant minors at that time. Now they do. I don't want to hear from the Boilermakers. But I had a focus area in animal science. And so I came out with Ag Econ and animal science, and I went to work for an animal health company. And I was a technical sales rep for an animal health company and calling on beef producers and veterinarians. And so did that for a few years and built a great network of individuals. Some of those people we still talk to today through our other businesses. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I was headed. And then I've had some other positions that were industry related as well. Mm-hmm. And so how did we get to the farm? Austin and I decided we didn't want to live in Lexington. We wanted to move out, as I said, and find a place to raise kids. And I had enjoyed growing up on a farm, and I thought that was a good way. So the rest of it is probably me just saying, yeah, I can do that over and over and over. And so the first year we farmed, we had someone that did a lot of custom work for us because we had nothing, no tractors, no mowers, no. And so the next year he's like, well, we had bought a few things, and, he and I were taking care of the cattle. We did a lot of the work in the evenings after work, like most cattle farmers. or many at least. And then it's like, well, we could rent a farm and have a few more. And it's like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. So sometimes I said, yeah, I can do it when I probably didn't know how I was going to do it. But jumping in the deep end and figuring it out. This is kind of a
common theme with most of the farmers.
Yep.
I said yes, and then hold on.
I know, we do. Yeah. But we always find a way to move on through. And that's where you push and learn and strive and you set goals. And that's kind of how I ended up at the farm.
Very cool.
Yeah. Just one day at a time. Ended up there. Yeah.
So how'd you get introduced to the idea of Farmer of the Year? And it's the Kentucky Farm Bureau Farmer of the Year. It's a big deal. We've been giving it out for how many years?
Quite a few.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Most time I've been here. But where did you learn from it, and why did you say, yeah, let's try this out and try to win it?
Well, it started with a phone call from my county farm bureau, and it was an invitation to fill out the application and do it. And I my first reaction was, there's other people that should be doing this, not me. And if you know Savannah Robbins, she's very persuasive, and so, and I love her for it. So I filled it out, and that's how I got involved with the program. I really wasn't familiar. I knew they recognized someone, but I never considered it would be something that would be for me. So, but I enjoyed the process very much. I met so many good people, and the judges that came and the other finalists were amazing, and we got to sit together at the ham breakfast and get to visit and talk, and that was really a treat to get to know them. So, yeah.
My favorite part about the Farmer of the Year, so that's the first year we brought them to the ham breakfast, which is really neat, and we're excited because we're trying to amp up the finalist. And Brenda, you were one of the ones that kind of gave us this idea too, that everyone is so gracious to even be chosen by their county to apply, and then much less become a finalist. So we're like, well, why don't we highlight some of these people? I mean, they're so excited to be here and so deserving. And it's always a tight race anyway. So we got all three, and the funniest thing was all three of them and their spouses, the commonality of, oh my gosh, I can't remember the last time. It's just been me and my husband or me and my wife at a breakfast in the same place. And it was comical watching it around the table. But a lot of these people are very hardworking. You're split up with the kids, or you're split up with different jobs or different ends of the farm. And it is hilarious when you put the same type and kind of farmers at the same table. They have the same commonalities,
It might be a different crop. It might be cattle or corn or beans or whatever their crop they're raising is. But that approach to it is very much, sometimes you meet your spouse in the driveway, when you're heading off to something else and they're coming in, or vice versa. So it's definitely a team effort in all these operations.
So one of my favorite parts of your story is definitely the part about raising the kids and being able to, say yes extra times and build the farm and everything. So I actually met Spencer, your oldest, before probably I met you in Austin. He was at Eiffel the year I interned. And so I was one of the counselors that year. And then now I've gotten to meet Nelson. And so I think the story of them kind of going to school and coming back is neat. So kind of talk us through what made you want to encourage them to go learn new things? What made you not immediately encourage them to have to come back? Kind of talk us through that thought process, because that's a hard one for parents, especially those that know their kids want to be involved in the farm.
It is a tough thing. And I think another commonality of all of us is that we want the best for our kids. And in our minds, we kind of have an idea of what it might be, but it's not necessarily what they think it needs to be. And so it has to be their choice. Some of the most unhappy people I've ever met had inherited a farm, and now they had to go take care of a farm every day. And if you don't love it, it is not fun. Like today was probably not fun if you really don't like farming and with the ice and the snow and all the things we're dealing with. But knowing that as they got older, we always told them, we're working really hard, so you have an opportunity, but you don't have a mandate. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a music major and somewhere else, go for it. But be the best you can be, and you come home once in a while, right? But the kids were interested. They did FFA. Both of them went to Eiffel. And they had an interest in further education, and they had an interest in agriculture. And so for that reason, we felt like, from our viewpoint, like I said, we deal with different segments of the beef industry. We felt like it was important they needed to learn that as great as Kentucky is, it's not the only piece of the food chain here when we're growing cattle. So Spencer had an interest in going to Texas A&M. Both of them did 1 year at the community schools here in Lexington, BCTC. Great experience. That's a great system. And Kentucky's lucky to have that strong of a community college system. They did 1 year here, and then they went out of state, and he went to Texas A&M. And, you know, he was down there, and it was great. He was having a big time, and one day he says, you know, Kentucky's got a lot more grass than Texas has. You know how many acres it takes to put the same number of cows that we have in Texas? And I'm like, yeah, we got a lot of resources. I didn't say a lot. And I think he started kind of seeing how the pieces of the industry fit together and how each resources are different. And I think he really enjoyed that. Then he graduated, went and worked in a feedlot for a little while, and then went to work for a major feeding company, and he was in cattle procurement, which was part of their risk management business, and gave him a great education, a really good network, had an interest in buying and selling cattle, so he's come back to Cattle Marketing Group and is working there. Nelson, similar story, interested in agriculture. We always encourage them when we travel and vacation to stop in and see, you know, what are they raising here, you know, whether it's, we were in Alberta, Canada, and yellow fields everywhere, and that was the first time they'd ever seen thousands of acres of canola, you know, and it was so, we just always kind of incorporated what's going on in the agriculture wherever we traveled. So Nelson had the same interest, and he went to the University of Nebraska, and a great network of people he made out there, and he also worked in a feedlot for a while and then came back. So they had some exposure to different parts of the industry, mainly beef industry, but for them to do what they do now, they need to kind of have a grasp of how we fit into that feeding. And it's not just cow-calf, it's not just stocker, it's not just feedlot, and what's our role. And have to kind of always be thinking about our end consumer, but also for raising calves, who's our intermediate consumer? Is it a stocker background, or is it a feedlot, or what's a packer looking for? And so it was a good way for them to experience that. Did not tell them they had to come home, but delighted that they did. That's the mom speaking here. And also the business person, that I'm glad they're both involved in the business. Nelson's at the farm and is taking more and more leadership roles all the time.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's the dream, right? Sort of, but it's good to let them create their own dream.
It is.
You know, it's your dream, but it's also, you want them to be.
It is.
It's not going to succeed if they don't want it, right?
That's exactly right. It's, and I would say, you know, other parents I've had this conversation with too, it's a lot of fun to get to know your kids as adults, you know? Mm-hmm. And so when they come back and they're doing their thing and you're, you know, it's neat. It's a neat experience. So I'm very blessed, and I know it. I know I am.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. A wise person a long time ago said, you need to leave to know you want to be home.
Yes.
And I think everyone, and that's like one of my biggest things I tell, pieces of advice I tell college students or high school kids. I don't care if it's a summer internship. I don't care if it's for 4 years of college. I don't care if it's for your first job. Kentucky is an outstanding place, and there's a reason people want to come back. There's a reason there's so many quotes of it. If you've ever met a Kentuckian, they're just away from Kentucky, they're just sitting around missing home. You know, there's all these cool quotes, but I really think that some of the best agriculturalists, some of the best employees out in the world are the ones that do get some perspective being somewhere else. And I think it makes you appreciate what you have here just as much as it does appreciate that nowhere is perfect. And so there's always room to grow, and maybe you're the one willing to make the next steps or have that perspective. So I think the story's neat. My first job was out of state in an industry I knew nothing about, but in ag. And so I relate to them a lot in the sense of like, it was awesome. It was fun. But when it was time to come home, it was like, it felt very rewarding for it to be my own idea. And nobody said, it's time for you to come home. It's a very independent moment as a child to get to tell your parents, like, I, as an adult, have decided to come home. And so, I don't know, I can see it in your boys, the way they talk to you and the way they work with you guys. I think it's really neat. So I always like giving you a chance to share that story.
Well, I appreciate that.
So when it comes to the farm itself, though, so both guys are back, both the boys are back. How important is it to you? You farm your family's ground. We talk about farmland transition all the time. How important is that to you, and how much is that almost just second nature at this point, wanting to make sure things are passed along, farm ground stays in farming? Kind of tell us what that piece means to you.
Okay. That's a lot to unpack right there. I come at this a couple of different ways. So I mentioned the farm in Indiana. My parents had the foresight to set up a trust many years before either of them were ill or had passed, and named a succession of trustees. And so at the time that the second one passed away, my dad was the second one to pass, the farm continued, and it was a very smooth transition, and I'm the trustee of that. And so we have a farmer that I work with up there, and custom hire a lot of stuff done, and we still have corn and beans, and we still have a few cows, and it's still continuing. Now, how long that will continue, I'm not sure. We'll have to make some decisions down the road, but I have enjoyed it. We do raise some corn and soybeans here, mainly soybeans, but that's more what that farm is. So it's a little bit of diversity for me as far as a business. My plan is to buy out my sister and then continue on. And my sister knows about that. I didn't just out that.
Breaking news on the
podcast.
Yeah, she's
just
aware.
Tell her about this recording and she'll be fine.
She's aware that, and we've had many conversations. So that's in process. But I'm very grateful that my parents had some planning in place. And I think it was a really, I've seen some other family stories that were not planned out. And then it was kind of like, my dad passed in May with the seed in the shop. And so we're like, we got to get the seed in the ground, and we were able to continue and have that succession there. So that one's in process. For us here at the farm, we're in the kind of the middle stages of where we need to be on that. But we're establishing two things, not only the estate and transfer, but also the succession of the business. And that I had to really kind of figure out that that's two different things. And so that's those are a lot of discussions you need to have with your family members. What do you want to do? Do you want to be a farmer? Are you just here because you feel like you need to be here right now, but you don't want to be here in 20 years? So a lot of those kind of discussions are going on. And Spencer's engaged. He's getting married in the spring. And so that brings another person in, and that's very exciting. And so we're working with a few different resources to kind of pull all the pieces of that together, the legal and the family discussions and all that, and hopefully moving forward. And I love that Farm Bureau's embraced that as a way to help family farmers do that, but also if the family doesn't want to farm anymore, then, how do you help somebody else farm? How do you keep that land in farm ground? I think some farmers have a hard time saying it's time to retire, and if you ran any other kind of business, you can say, I'm going to retire and you're done. And farmers that have a hard time hanging it up, we just don't want to quit and we can't help ourselves. And sometimes there's time to say, it's okay to retire. And if there's nobody there to come in, then it'd be nice if there's some way to transition that in some profitable way, but opportunity for somebody else to farm in. And hopefully your all's program will uncover some avenues there that will be very helpful.
Yeah. I think, every farmer I've ever interviewed has said it's a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle.
It is.
That's the problem.
It is.
You're telling me to stop kind of living, right? Like this is my day, every day, my whole life.
Yeah.
And you're saying, right. Retire from life? Like, what are you talking about? And I think that's a big part of this is a lot of folks are just like, what do I do now? Like,
right.
And you agree. I think that's such a big part of this is getting those farmers to, you don't have to stop maybe, or there's other ways maybe to, what does retirement have to look like for someone that, a job is a lifestyle. It's not just a job.
It's tough. And yet you do the next generation a disservice if you don't address those, or you end up with, an 80-year-old with a 60-year-old son who's never made a major decision on the farm. And that's a problem because, making decisions is a skill that you develop by making bad decisions.
Right. Right.
And you need that time to practice and move forward. But yeah, it is a very unique, like you said, lifestyle. And I think for me, I think as we move forward, we're developing the next group behind us. I don't think I'll ever quit, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think my job description might change. My husband's example was he didn't mind getting on the tractor and mowing, but he didn't want to service it anymore.
Yeah.
That's his goal. Have somebody service and say, you can just get on a drive, and then when you're done, you can get off the tractor and go to the house.
Yeah, that's what retirement. This is the list I don't want to do anymore. Other than that,
right.
let's keep it like it is. Yeah.
Well, we all have those things we just love to do on the farm, and like to be able to do them if you had the option. But I really think it's kind of like parenting. Your job description changes when your kids get older. It really does.
Yeah.
And so the farm is too. And we're first generation with this operation, and so in many ways it was there before the babies came, and so it's kind of one of the babies, and there'll be a time it's time to be stepping back, and we're the only way to do that is give experiences, and help the next generation develop those. And it may not be family. It could be your next person you're developing, maybe a long-term employee. It may be someone that just you've met and really like them. I've heard some wonderful stories out there of people who have found somebody they connect with and can transition operations.
Yep.
So I'm jumping back a little bit, but you mentioned CALP, and I always think it's interesting to me. I've actually got one of our Farmer of the Year finalists going to the Young Farmer Leadership Conference this weekend. And one of the things I want them to talk about is they're successful, diversified farmers, but they didn't just farm. They met people, they joined committees, they went to some Young Farmer meetings, or they joined a board. Talk to us about some of the impactful things that you did over the years. And I know you've told me so many different opportunities that have been blessed to be a part of, whether it's seating on a board or different organizations. What are some of the ones that you think really just made a huge impact as you were learning how to diversify and grow and kind of taking on this role of not just a mom and not just a spouse, but also the farmer right here on the ground?
Well, CALP certainly comes to mind. That was a great experience. But I would encourage anyone to take advantage of any type of program like that. You all have LEAD. You have some other things going on, Generation Bridge, I guess. There's several of the chemical companies that have programs for the crop farmers. The Cattlemen's has their leadership program. That is any of those that you can take part in would be a wonderful, because they're very well thought out over multiple sessions, and they cover a lot of the basis. Any commodity organization that you can join is good. Corn grower, soybean, cattle, and get active. Go. Don't just pay your dues and don't look back, but get involved. Farm Bureau itself. I've met wonderful people when I was on the board at Bourbon County, and so I would say any of those things. I think travel is really good. Working somewhere else, all the ways you can build that network, and it's easier now. Everybody has the same phone number that they'll carry for years. When I came out of college, nobody had cell phones, so it wasn't really 100 years ago. It just sounds like it. But it's hard to keep up with people. But now you can keep up with people so easily through social media, and so most people are very welcoming to a call to say, "Hey, what's going on in your neighborhood?" Or what's the cattle, what's the grass look like up there? What's going on? And it's really important to keep those connections. I think that's really important, not only for developing your business, but just developing, your person, who you are. The more people you know is a good thing. And I think it's good for mental health, actually, too, to, just remember you're not the only one out there doing this. You've got this network of people, and maybe they're growing wheat and maybe they're growing cotton, but, they all have their challenges, too. And so the more of that network you have, I think is really good. Any of the, I've served on Farm Service Agency, State Committee, and met a lot of the staff and statewide in those offices, and really knowledgeable group of people. My goodness. So I would just say always have something going on besides just your farm and family, and just something to get you off the farm. I think sometimes I have more to contribute to some of these groups because I'm from a farm. And I think I'm probably better at the farm because I've spent time on those boards. It's a give and take. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen as an outsider a little bit of the ag industry is how, aren't you all supposed to be competitive with each other, and you don't really act it? I mean, there's a lot of giving among each other, and there is, there's actually some competitiveness about it, but that you don't see that. And I think that's such a neat part of what I've seen through the years is how giving people are to information and how they do things. And you see roadside market that's a mile away, help roadside market that's right there. And you're like, aren't you all supposed to be, you're both selling pumpkins, what is that? But that is a really neat part of this community of agriculture.
I think sometimes you understand your competitor better than maybe you understand your other friends, because you understand you're dealing with the same challenge. The pumpkin growers you were just talking about, they both know if there's a blight or something going on. They both know what that means to their operation, and we had a shop fire a few years ago, and there's people that, do you need a place to store your equipment? Do you need, what do you need? And we've done the same thing. The horse farm lost its roof a couple of years ago, and, first call, as soon as I got their number, his call was like, I've got some extra stalls. Do you need to put horses in them? And are we competitors? Yeah, sometimes on land you get a little competitive, but, by and large, we're all in the same boat, and we know what it's like, so.
Yeah, I liked you talking about learning the staff and being on some of those. I think I have always told people one of the best places I ever worked for perspective's sake was facilitating some projects for Ag Development Board, not because maybe it was the greatest job or the most fun job or all these different things. It was hard. I mean, it was just like any job, but it helped me. I have been able to explain a process to more people. Farmers don't have time to read 14 pages on a website, but sometimes they have 5 minutes for you to explain the process. I've learned that so much. My husband's first cousin is our FSA coordinator in the 3-county area. Debbie Wakefield was one of the interims for a while. She's in my county. I have learned more and I have less frustration with that office staff when I understand what they do and don't have control over and what they are trying wholeheartedly to help you with. And so I do think sitting on those boards sometimes, not that the staff needs your sympathy, that's not what I mean, but it gives you some realistic understanding of what they're working with. And you do understand the content. We're very blessed. There's some incredibly smart people in some areas. We've got some of the greatest loan managers on that state level when it comes to USDA and FSA and different pieces. But you don't get a chance to meet those guys unless you get on those kind of boards. So I thought that was a cool perspective too. You've gotten to sit on quite a few of those, and it's that step further than just your soil conservation district. It's that step further than simply your county farm bureau board. It's that next level that I think gains you that extra piece of knowledge.
It's a perspective I wish everybody could have, and it's not possible for everybody to have it. But it really is to. I probably improved the quality of the records I was submitting to my. Once I was on the other side looking at those, like, okay, I need to straighten this out. But some of the names you just mentioned, I also worked with, and they're dedicated to their farmers, and they do a wonderful job. But yeah, it's and the Ag Development Board was another one. You asked about organizations. I was very honored to serve on that for that period of time, and. The other board members and the younger staff that's there is just an outstanding group. They work really hard. Yeah.
So we never really asked, how did it feel to win Farmer of the Year?
Oh, wow. It's very humbling, actually. I mean, I was surprised, first of all, to be named go all the way back to Bourbon County. I was surprised to be asked. I was very surprised to be a finalist. And then to be named winner was a big surprise. Mm-hmm. It really was. And it also gives you an opportunity to really kind of take stock and look back and look at what's going on and realize you don't deserve this because you've got thistles in your field and you didn't get them all sprayed. There's a little bit of self-critiquing. Okay, a lot of self-critiquing going on, but yeah, it's humbling is the only word I can think of. Yeah, because I have met so many people in the state, and I do know what all's out there in many areas, and there's some amazing farmers in the state. So I appreciate it so much.
Excellent.
Well, it's Jed Clark was the first one to tell me that. He was my first Farmer of the Year since I got to staff it. And he said, it is the most nerve-wracking, humbling, you're shocked, you're confused, like, how is it me? You have this real moment, and then you win. And he goes, and then my reign's over. I was the winner for 1 month. And I'm like, no, you're the winner till we get another winner. So his big joke goes, well, it's 2023, so I guess it's over January 1. I was like, no. And this podcast and a lot of other things are ways we can help promote it in the sense of, and I think you and a couple of the finalists the last few years have said it really well. Just because I am Farmer of the Year doesn't make me the best farmer in the state of Kentucky. That just means that in this particular setup, I was chosen on that day. And the other finalists were fantastic people who are just as worthy. And there were some in the counties just as worthy. So I think it is a really cool moment to see those people in the same room and to get a chance to highlight, even if that's what all you feel like it is sometimes, is a highlight for your year, but very deserving. And I hope you do see that part of it, not just the thistles in your field. When the video crew shows up and says, can we do that one? And then you're like, no.
We did have a discussion on a plan. But I'm really glad to hear you say that Jed said that, because it's conflicting emotions. It really is. And he said it very well. And thank you for sharing that, because it wasn't just me then. But yeah, it's all of that. And it's a process too. You know, by the time you do some paperwork and then have them out, of course, I think we had judges out twice with the conflict of schedules. So had that opportunity, and that worked out very well. But you know, there's some time commitment to do that, and it was all time well spent.
Yeah, do you recommend it? I mean, I think that's one thing. We do these videos for all these different contests, and I think often people that aren't in the contest, they see the videos, they see, you know, they hear some numbers, they hear all this stuff from these farms, and they think, oh, wow, there's no chance that I could win something like that. Do you find that to be true? I mean, do you think if you're really proud of your farm, it's worth putting it in, right?
Oh, I would think so, yeah. And in most cases, the farmer's not the one stepping up because, you know, we just don't do that. The farmer group, the committee or the board and the counties are the ones who've identified who would be a good candidate. And so, yeah, I would definitely agree that they should do that. Yeah.
Well, Brenda, we cannot thank you enough. This will come out, I guess it's Monday when you guys are hearing this, but it is a very, very cold, very, very snowy and icy day, which doesn't narrow it down to our recording day because it has been like that for, it feels like 2 weeks.
Yes.
So there are 100 places you could be and a lot of ice patches you could be slipping on trying to get hay to cattle. And so we appreciate you making the drive to Louisville. It's fun to get people to the studio, but it's also fun to highlight really neat ag stories. And the more ways we can share them, the better, no matter if we video and press release. And sometimes guys have an earbud in their ear while they're putting their hay out, and maybe they'll get to hear your story and kind of learn some things or want to connect. So,
well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks, Brenda, and thank you, listeners. Be sure to subscribe to our larger podcast, Kentucky Farm Life, and we'll see you next time on Between the Rows.